Welcome, everyone, to CDO Magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President, Sandhill Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from Toronto, Canada, working with the CDO Magazine. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Shashank Garg, who is the founder and CEO of Infocepts. Welcome, Shashank.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy that we're doing this.
It's our pleasure too. We had a couple of conversations beforehand just to line this up, and I must admit I was reading your company profile and I was extremely impressed. You've got over 380,000 business users supported globally. You've got over 12,000 successful initiatives, a huge client loyalty. I think it's 97.2%, if I read my notes correctly, and over 180 million in client savings. So can I ask, what is really driving all this growth and success?
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing all that up, and a huge shout out to our teams globally. Been working tirelessly with on some of the very, very bleeding edge and problems that exist in the whole data and AI space. Been doing this for about 2 decades now. So some of that success is just the build-up that we have had in our experiences and expertise over time, working very closely with our clients. So that's focus is number one. And second is almost a maniacal focus on business value. So there are multiple ways of doing this, right? I mean, you can be submerged in the complexities of the data, get lost with the technology, and often lose sight,
Yes.
of the value you're producing. And that's where I see 80-90% of efforts, not reaching their goals. And we talk about high failure rates with data initiatives, right? We approach it backwards. So decision first, business value first. Just a super focus on defining, articulating what we are trying to achieve for the business, what problem we are solving, what do we seek in outcomes, whether it is efficiency, cost saved, revenue lift, whatever that is, right? And we use a simple mantra here, right? So if I'm going to ask you to invest in data and AI initiative, I must at least give you the same ROI back in cost savings by 2 to 3x, or I should create a revenue lift of 10 to 20x. That's like the thumb rules we follow at Infocepts, and that kind of drives everything.
I'm sure a lot of executives and data leaders would love to be able to get that 10 to 20x lift in the revenue streams for that. Now, I understand that you've just co-authored a white paper on data and AI initiatives to actually help drive business growth in 2024 and beyond. And I believe that we're going to take a couple of concepts from this white paper. Can you maybe tell me, how did the concept of the white paper come about, first of all?
I mean, as I said, right? I mean, we, again, been in business for 2 decades now, having done this for many clients globally. We continue to see what I would call misplaced priorities of projects. And it shouldn't be this hard. We've been doing this, this field of data and AI has existed for 3 decades now, but it is. So we just sort of took the time to think through what we believe. If you're a CDO, if you're a data leader, both on the business side or tech side, doesn't matter. What are some of the 4 or 5 things you must get right, especially in the context of all the technology disruptions we are seeing with AI in general and Gen AI in specific, right? So that's what kind of led to all this. And I look at it in 4 or 5 buckets, right? If you ask me, what are 3 to 5 things you should be looking at? First is really prioritizing data enablement for AI. We say this at Infocepts, right? Data helps you differentiate, not the models. I mean, I can have the sexiest model, but it's not going to do much if, the data isn't there, right? I think now is the time to revisit whatever you're doing on the AI side of things. Reinforce your AI council, establish an AI lab or reestablish the AI lab, which is super focused on business value. That's sort of the second one. I do recommend all the data leaders to really think through the Gen AI disruption and make it work for your business. And that's your opportunity to think beyond the art of the possible, as we talk about it, right? Then there are two more topics that, we as data leaders should not remove our focus on. And, the first one I was gonna talk about there is, look at all your data products, and we have certain definition of a data product in our businesses today, and extend them to what I call full stack data products. And I can elaborate, what that means in just a little bit.
Sure.
And lastly, we've all been on a modernization frenzy in the last 3 years, the modern data stack. I am a big believer, it's time to simplify. So whatever you've done in the name of modernization, take a hard look, simplify.
Yeah, I think that a lot of organizations will probably match that. There's been a huge investment in that, and I know that those 4 or 5 buckets that you talked about. What we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of minutes and just explore them and go into depth and get your opinion on that.
Happy.
Starting right out of the gate, in your opinion, how do you think organizations could or should, you mentioned reestablish or establish it if they haven't got one, a AI lab for businesses to reap the benefits of innovation without residual risks? What's your thoughts on that if you were to guide a data leader on that?
I think there are two pieces to it, right? One, actually, before we start there, right? I'm assuming, as you can see, Robert, right? Most organizations by now do have some construct of an AI council, right? And that's, a prerequisite of, establishing an AI, right? So to ensure that that's there, I am assuming that's there for most organizations. If you're a large enterprise, that's likely to be the case. Revisit who is a part of it, whether it's working, not working. You want a good mix of stakeholders in the business side who are really driving the decisions and the demand for AI, and a few people who think out of the box from the tech side, right? So that combination, a healthy combination of those two skills, what drives a successful AI council. Assuming you have that and you've got the right focus, the first thing that you can do is actually prioritize that data enablement, right? And there, I see most organizations talking about topics like, oh, we need to catalog our data sources. Great. We need to put the right data quality measures and metrics and ensure that we're engineering for data quality. I think that is happening. And you can always argue with how effective that is. But I think what is not happening is this council coming together and saying, what are the highest value data maps for our organization? And by data map, I simply mean, right, what are the highest value use cases and what data is needed to realize the success of those use cases, and just prioritize them. And sometimes the data is there, but the value is not there. Sometimes the value is there, but it's far too complex to get it there, right? So just being methodical about prioritizing based on complexity, value, gaps, and then having a plan drive that, right? So that's the one piece that
Right.
needs to exist on the data enablement side. Second, when it comes to the lab, right? I think what we often see, and people have some things that are already happening, right? So, but what I often missing is this delineation between what I call a system of experimentation for AI and a system of implementation. And we sort of confuse, because the activities that you do here are similar. There is fair amount of overlap. But if you're a large organization, you want to delineate these two systems. And we worked on a platform called DiscoverYai, which is a fully managed AI lab solution that you should, you could literally take as your system of experimentation. And what it does is it just takes the whole cycle and makes it very auditable, makes it very clear for the business stakeholders on what's happening. So things like, do I have the data? If I have the data, does it have meaningful signals? If it has signals, do I know I'm solving the right problems? Why should I trust it? I mean, can I see it, work? Is it explainable? Is it easy for me to explain? If I can't explain, I'm not going to trust it, right?
Right.
And lastly, does it comply with the framework of responsible AI that my compliance team and my organizational leadership is putting on me, right? So being compliant with that, right? So this whole 4 or 5 pieces, right? You put that in one single platform. So all your AI experiments are very visible. And, once you hit success, then you can quickly take the steps in your system of implementation with all the observability there to ensure that you put in production and realize value.
And just for my own knowledge, you mentioned signals, right? You got to see the quality data. You talk about the signals. In what sort of aspect do you look at the signals? What are you looking for in the signals?
So by that, I mean, we have tons and tons of data, right? And we've been
Yeah,
mining structured data for a while, right? And there's analysis put out there to see whether there is a pattern that is emerging that we
right.
are
Okay.
not utilizing, or that's something we could do something with, right?
So you're equating signals to patterns. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that it helps me just clarify that.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so that's great. That helps us understand how you would establish AI lab. And actually, as in my mind, I've just drawn a Venn diagram of system of testing, a system of implementation. I think in experimentation you called it. Uh, why do you have both and not one? Why would you not have the same? I know there's a logical reason for it, but I thought I'd just ask you to share that with our
Yeah.
audience and readers,
Well, first of
listeners.
all, we have to realize that there is a lot of AI use cases in the large enterprise. It's not uncommon to have 10, 20, 30, 100 use cases getting built on in different stages of implementation or experimentation, right? You want to separate them because the moment you put the traditional gating systems, IT gating systems to ensure that it goes and sees the light of the day to get implemented, you kill experimentation.
Right.
And if you don't put a system together for experimentation, then people are working in their silos, they're experimenting the hell out of it, but nothing is coming out. And there's
Right.
frustration, there is no visibility. So you separate the two activities, but you have systems for both, is how we see it.
Excellent. Oh, that helps me understand that as well. So, Shashank, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you, Robert. And for the audience, I'm available on LinkedIn. Happy to take any questions. You can post your questions here or reach out to me on email or via LinkedIn.
And for our listeners, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you.